In French, there's a saying often used to describe Château de Purnon. Il reste dans son jus. It remains in its original condition, in its original glory, barely touched over the passage of time. Purnon is slowly revealing her secrets to us, some hidden away for centuries under threat of being lost forever. This week at Château de Purnon, we take a journey to discover the Chateau's breathtaking collection of original wallpapers. Work on our roof and facades advances as the keystone is placed in the central pediment, and we race to prepare the property for a secret event. Château de Purnon has the highest level of heritage protection. This is because of its incredible architecture and history. Its spectacular roof, built in the style of Philibert Delorme, is a work of art of national importance. The elegant beauty and harmony of its neoclassical design, its breathtaking natural setting, with the Grande Allée extending towards the horizon. Château de Purnon's interiors are also heritage listed. The main reason for this is its unrivaled collection of stunning original wallpapers. Several of them exist nowhere else in France today. This sublime hand-block painted wallpaper from the Revillon workshop in Paris. This grand paper celebrating a free trade agreement signed between France and Great Britain in 1786. This paper from the beginning of the 19th century. We found this paper on a privacy screen abandoned in one of our outbuildings. Even today, you can see the subtle hints that it was hand-painted. As our interior restoration commenced, we began to uncover traces of other wallpapers that had been concealed for more than a century. Under each layer in most of Purnon's 105 rooms, we discovered traces of the past. We carefully documented our incredible discoveries, meticulously noting each room and each wall where the different papers were uncovered. We then travelled to the Museum of Wallpapers in Rixheim in eastern France. There we met some of France's leading experts in historical wallpapers to discuss our discoveries. They were astonished. Our amazing architect, Monsieur Didier, and his team also researched the origins of many of our wallpapers using both the Chateau archives and other resources. There are many clues that we can use to uncover the secrets of these wallpapers. Sometimes newspaper backings were used which enable us to date certain papers with great precision. In other cases, manufacturers' marks can be found. The motifs that came in and out of style can help experts. And obviously, the order in which some papers were layered on a wall can give us a valuable hint. Our goal in restoring Château de Purnon is to honour her late 18th century aesthetic and style wherever we can. To respect this style is to honour the history of the era of the chateau's construction. It's also a style full of colour palettes, designs and motifs that we love. We have given careful thought to how Château de Purnon's wallpapers will look in the decades ahead. As much of the originals as possible will be preserved, but in many rooms we must hang new wallpapers. Next week we will begin to reveal the choice of wallpapers we have made. We have worked closely with experts in both historical wallpapers and interior design to create something worthy of this incredible place. Up on the roof, after months of painstaking work, our stonemasons have finally reached the point of putting the finishing touches on the new stones on the central pediment, culminating with the delicate task of positioning the central keystone.
C'est exactement ça. Ah, allez, encore, allez, tu peux encore baisser. De ta fond. Vas-y, je baisse. Tu baisses là. Je baisse. Stop.
The task of restoring Purnon's dormers also makes great progress this week as our roofers complete the restoration of another 2 of the Chateau's 38 dormers. Plus, they finish a new section of the sheathing, getting ready to lay the very first slate tiles on the western side of Purnon's magnificent roof. We've got our first event here, babe.
Yeah, so we've got to get this space ready because they want to use the bread oven for catering. So we've got to give this a bit of a clean. It hasn't been cleaned since Le Journée du Patrimoine last year, so there's quite a bit to do.
It's sort of sat here like this since last September. But the event that we're having is an event that we'll share with you in the coming weeks, and it's really exciting actually. So the local boulanger will come and use the four au pain, so the 18th century bread oven, to work with the caterer. So he'll do the bread and then the caterer will do a meal, and they'll have it out the front of this of the Commun Est here. So
yeah, and it's the same boulanger or the same baker that does the cooking or makes the bread for the Journée du Patrimoine. And he uses this old oven here.
So this is the Chateau's 18th century original boulangerie where all the bread for the domain would have been made. There's actually a bread oven in the chateau itself where I guess the bread for the actual chateau was cooked, but this would have served the entire domain.
What we do know from these is that they used so much bread, they used so much wood to make the oven hot enough for bread making, and they had to keep it hot all the time, that once you'd heated it up, sort of everyone came and baked their bread in the one oven because it made sense.
So it will take a couple of days, it will take 2 days to heat it up to the temperature that the boulanger needs it to be. And so today our plan is we need to clean it up so that it's ready for him to come. We need to
stack
some wood for him, clean out the actual oven because it's still got the ashes from last year's Journée du Patrimoine, where we sold hundreds of loaves of bread. And then that's all really. It's just giving it a big clean up.
It's a pretty basic space anyway.
And remember when we arrived, like this was just...
You couldn't get into this room. It had so much stuff in it. There were old wheels and wine barrels and everything had found a home in here.
Yeah.
And we cleared it out, and actually restoring that was the first project our local stonemason did for us. And we've used it for pizza nights and all sorts of things since then, so it's been a wonderful thing.
And remember also, here's where we found the vases that were on the
terrace.
On the terraces.
Yeah, on those pedestals.
Yeah.
And we've got one of them, thankfully, unbroken. The other ones were all broken over time, and I guess that's why they took them down.
Yeah.
But the original one,
in the corner,
they were all here in pieces. But it's nice to have because the one that we have got tells us exactly how they looked.
Yeah. And so then the only other thing with this room is through the door here is actually where all the dough was prepared. So there's a kneading, what do you call that?
Well, in French you call it a pétrine. And it's a table, essentially a bench that you would have kneaded the bread on.
Underneath.
Or the dough. And then underneath all the flour fell through. So I guess they could both keep the area tidy and perhaps waste the least possible flour.
But so today, do you think, I mean, we have no need for that over this event, so maybe we'll use it to store the chairs.
Some of the chairs, yeah.
And we'll clean the carpets up and so on. The carpets are here actually just to prevent the dust because there is no floor on here. And one day we would love to actually put a stone floor in, but
that's a project for later on.
Yeah, one must choose their battles. All right.
All right, let's get to it.
Get started.
So what's the story here? How do they want to use this space?
So what they like about this space is its charm, and they're going to use the back wall to do a product display.
Right.
And so what they've asked is that we clear it so that there's space for the guests to come in and look at the display without it losing its charm.
Right.
And so I think one of our challenges is obviously there is
A giant vat underneath us.
Yeah. There, which is super, super dangerous.
Yes. The trapdoor of peril.
Yeah. And then, like, fortunately, I guess, a lot of this is stuff that's kind of rotted out wood, you know, like, you know, tiles that have fallen off the roof. So it's not where all our most valuable things for the Chateau are.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, we're in the Chateau, which is the wine barrel room for the Chateau. So this is where the wine was stored in the huge vats behind us. And
underneath us?
Yes, there's a ginormous one under here. And also there's a lot of the winemaking paraphernalia left here, lots of big barrels, weighing equipment, bottling equipment, and so on. Anyway, so this is where we restored the roof this year. So it's dry and amazing. And this is the first time it will ever be used.
Yeah. We've got things we want to save. We've got things we've got to get rid of because it's the first chance we've had to clear it up after all the work that was done above us. So there's a lot of rubbish that's been left over from that, from the destructive elements of the roof restoration above us. But then there's lots of really charming things that we'd like to put to one side. And when we recreate this space, we want to show off its winemaking past as much as possible. And then obviously we've got to have a safe space so that people can come in for this event and safely enter, look at the product.
And in the future, we'd love to use this space as a sort of event space or an undercover event space, because we don't have those kind of spaces in the Chateau that we can use at the moment.
Yeah, it's a really large area, and it's, you know, once you deal with some of the stuff that's here, it's quite open, and it's got a lot of charm. Yeah, that was hard work. So we're pretty close to being finished.
Yeah, so we'll just do that section.
Yeah.
And we don't need to worry about that because their display is going to be here. So.
Okay, and I'll get rid of this ladder and this bit of wood and these two metal poles.
Yeah.
And maybe
we'll call it done.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that there was stone on the floor there.
Yeah, I'm curious as to what the floor would have originally looked like, if it was packed earth or if it was something like that.
That makes me think it was the stone, huh? But it stops there, so it's just on the edge of the concrete.
Yeah. And I was curious that we found what seems to be a drain over here.
Yeah.
A copper-topped one. It must be something to do with the wine.
I think you could like hose down and it just probably went to the drain.
Yeah.
To the drainage.
All right, well.
And do you know, I think also with it cleaner, with the ground cleaner, I feel like this is safer because it's more obvious that there's a huge hole there, whereas when there was all the... Because you remember when we came here, we didn't even know that there was... It was the whole thing, it had been used for chopping wood and the whole thing was covered in wood and wood chip and...
Yeah, and well, you found it and it took us some time. We'd been clearing up trying to find out what the base was, and we found concrete here and we couldn't find it over there and we were really puzzled. And I remember you were cleaning that section and you came upon...
It was so dangerous because that was the door and look how rotted it is. If someone had have stood on it... That
was the state of the trapdoor.
Yeah. All right, cool. Good job, babe.
All right, well, we'll finish this off and
I'm going to go get something to eat. I'm starving.
Okay. No, well done. Good work.
Okay.
Well, thank you for joining us for this week's video. And if you'd like to follow the restoration of the magnificent Château de Purnon more closely, we post a daily update on our Instagram stories, an exclusive weekly video on Patreon, and this week I take our Patreon viewers on an incredible tour of the amazing orangery that you can see just behind me. Or just hit the subscribe button below and we'll keep you up to date.